Hello, my name is Robert. We don't have too much time, so I'm not going to introduce myself. If you want, find me on the LinkedIn. You will see where I was working and what I was doing before. Currently, I'm working as a software engineer in Personia. It's a German company taking care about the HR solutions in general. So let's get to the point. So probably you want to see at least something like this from the movie, and we want to speak about how to transform this nice block to some kind of colorful things, services working together in the same way as this huge block is working, right? So probably you read a lot of books, you probably were on some presentations before, and I think you will find some kind of elements which you could already hear in the previous presentations, but I hope this will be still useful for you. So always when you speak about the monoliths and the moving from one architecture to another, you have to just start with something that you have, right? So what usually is happening when you have a monolith, you have like nice monolith, you just identify some nice domain. I'm going to speak a lot about domains here. So you identify some domain which can be easily taken away. Yeah? This is the part when most books are actually covering and it's probably a very familiar pattern which you always find when you start doing with microservices. You just find some element which is nice and easy to dissect and just move it away from the monolith, right? So what do you do next? Okay, so it wasn't nice, fine, good. Let's repeat it, yeah? So you find another nice domain which is easy to dissect. Get out from the monolith and you're just doing this. Nice and easy. Do you recognize this pattern? Probably yes. I hope so. So what's happening next? We just trying to repeat this. This was also presented on the previous presentation. It's also in the book. I didn't know that. You're just trying to repeat until you just dissect enough just to get rid of all the microservices. And you're just doing this. But this is the first phase, when everything is nice and easy, and I call this monolith explosion. When we just easily identify elements in our monolith and we're just taking them out very easily, right? Because they have like very far away from each other, or they just don't have to cooperate with each other. So it's easy to do. And it's happening like we explode. Everyone wants to have their own service. Everyone wants to manage this by themselves. Everyone wants to be independent and doing this as I want, right? So this is nice time, yeah? But what's happening, usually at this time, when you have some domains which actually they just a little bit like touching each other, right? So I have some part of the domain in one microservice, but I'm still using something from the other microservice. And this is when actually the whole trouble actually is coming, because now we have a few options, right? So what we can do, we can just combine them, yeah? Easy peasy. Now we are together, we have combine teams, combine whatever we need, and we have another microservice a little bit bigger. So what else we can do? We can just extract the part which we need, because it highly depends on your domain, by the way. We can extract this part from the other monolith and just take the ownership, bring the ownership to us, right, to the new monolith. Or we can just keep them as it is and start the communication. About communication I will speak later. But this is another topic, yeah? So this is when actually things start to be a little bit more complex with the monolith things, right? Because every book just saying, yeah, we find the domain. But the domains are not always cut in the same way, yeah? And this makes this first phase of monolith explosion a little bit more complicated, yeah? Because what's happening? Usually we follow the pattern, let's combine this together, because we don't know how to dissect the subdomain domain into subdomains, or we cannot do this because the other domain also needs this data. There was some reason why this small part was in the other things. So I call this phase monolith implosion. When everything was like boom, we have a like huge amount of monolith, microservices, sorry. That's probably intentional. But we have also like implosion. When everything in the domains start to like ticking in your head. Okay, so we need someone else. We need someone else to just deliver something as a monolith. And before it was easy. I just had some like dependency or anything like that in the library, and done. I have all data I need. Now it's not so easy, right? So you have some implosion, or you need to figure out how to communicate. So this kind of behaviors leads to some kind of timing problems. You just need to spend more time. It's not so smooth anymore. So what's happening? You have something which I call split brain. And you have like many different ways to represent this. But imagine that you start to extract some microservice, you recognize some domain. But at some point you just realize that you cannot just remove it. The previous situation was when the microservice had to communicate, but now we have some part which must stay with the monolith. So it's still part of our subdomain, but it must stay for so many thousands of reasons. We don't have enough time to cover, probably another presentation, why this small part must stay with the monolith. So we have to dissect this in such a different way, yeah? But we cannot leave it like that, yeah? So usually we just create some kind of parasite, right? We create not microservice, we just create some service which is still feeding on the like host monolith. This can appear in many different ways. You can just get direct access to the monolith database. You can get some kind of special API in the monolith just for me, which later will be used by many other services if you just have it. And this parasite is just living there on the monolith all the time because it was hard to dissect it. Yeah. So this is one pattern which I see in plenty of companies when people don't understand how actually the domain is working, or they don't want to dissect, or it's not possible because of the complexity of the system implemented in the monolith. So another way when like split brain appears is we're going through these all phases which I mentioned of explosion, implosion, and everything. So what's happening? You just have some kind of microservices already done, but what actually is left is the monolith still. And I've been in the project when the project was called Monolith 2010. I was in this company in 2015. So imagine that for 5 years, this kind of monolith zombie is living in your company all the time because you lost some momentum sometimes. Sometimes what's happening, this is another pattern which I also see, is companies, they're very keen to start the process of moving to the microservices, but at some point you will lose some momentum. We need new features. So you as a developers, you don't have enough time to just continue to do this work, and you create this kind of zombies, yeah? And in my experience, I recognize two types of zombies. So the first zombie is attractive zombie. This is when you just have like huge amount of feature staying in this zombie all the time, and it just attracts the other microservices. Come back to me. I have so many things in me that it's so nicely done that please come back. I want to be together with you, right? So, but we have also Newton's law, right? Which is saying if you have some force, you have an equally opposite force. Because people just invest in this, right? So in the company, you have people who are just, no, it's too sexy, developers, yeah? We want to work with this microservices because I can put this in my CV. Or you have managers, we put so much money in your projects, and now you want to tell me that you don't want to have it, right? So this is like lack of understanding how the evolution of the software actually is happening. But this attractive zombie will happen plenty of times, and I'm surprised why people don't remember how it was with original monolith, and they just still want to come back to this monolith, right? But I like this kind of zombie. This is another pattern, which is more friendly, right? It's friendly zombie because what's happening? You dissect, and suddenly you discover that there is some kind of set of features, functions, which you would like to have, but they don't belong to anyone. Or they don't have like clear ownership. So this monolith zombie just changing to some kind of support microservice. And this is maybe the best way to do this. But this friendly zombie actually just giving you a lot of nice features. It acts as a shared library in your on the language level. It's still good. It's well defined, but no one wants to own the shit, right? That's the problem. So this is the patterns when we're speaking about the dissecting, and during this dissecting, we have two things: learnings and some kind of myths, which usually happening when I just have it, right? So I'm going to play a little bit like Mythbusters. If you know the TV series, they're just taking something and they prove that this is wrong or not. So I think the first myth about the monolith is that it's so bad that it always have to be transformed to something else. And this represents the monolith, right? So people just thinking about monolith as a monster, something which doesn't have creepy things, which doesn't fit anywhere or anything like that. So what you have some interfaces you don't understand, and it's just trying to bite you, destroy you, kill you, and every developer says, oh shit, I have to do, sorry for shit. So you have to do something in this monolith, right? So this is very common, but it doesn't have to be. Because you can just change your monolith in something, from many different other ways. But it's not so sexy as microservices, right? We want to work in technologies, we want to have autonomy, all the stuff. But maybe this is the better way to do this. Yeah? So another myth, there is only one step to move from the monster to organized monolith. If you have knowledgeable people in your team, they probably understand very well that you can fix some problems not by changing the whole architecture, right? So they're just saying, okay, let's just fix small things in the existing project, existing code, existing architecture, whatever we need to change, in order to be more organized. And when we start doing this, there is a promise to managers, we are going to do this in 1 week, yeah? Or 2 weeks, choose your period, yeah? So, and what is happening? People start doing this, and we finish with some kind of another monster, but they organize a little bit different internally, and we never finish it. So this myth just appears when you want to have some plan, but this plan is just diverted by many different things. Again, probably another presentation. So what's happening also? That monolith never changes. This is also about the planning, how you move from one architecture to another one. So you think, I understand domains, I understand when they are, let's cut this in this way. It takes some time, right? And during this time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right, months, years, you just discover that actually it's not true that this cut was good enough. So people have this mind that I'm going to go ahead, try to cut this in a specific way, and it's going to be constant, right? Domains are not constant, and they're changing all the times. And plenty of times, this is the reason why this transformation is stopped, and we finish with the zombies, right? Another point is, which I already mentioned probably a few times, is people thinking that this process is so easy because it's well described. You have plenty of books. You have books about doing this in Java, doing this in Kotlin, doing this in any other language. And it's going to be like, let's jump. But I think what we're missing usually, and this myth appears in the, in the heads of our managers especially, that we know each other. We know each other internally. We know our domains. We know how actually we even use our software, even how we use our languages. And this is our internal problem, how to actually understand yourself and how to understand that domains are not constant, they are also constantly changing, right? So the embracing the change is quite hard because in the monolith, it's not so visible. It's not immediately visible. When you start to cut things, you actually expose some things which you don't usually understand. Yeah, that's the huge myth. So, because you join the team and you're asking the most senior people in the team, how would you like to cut this monolith, right? And the one person just saying, oh, I'm working here for 5 years, I think this should be cut this way, yeah? And the other person working also 5 years, equally senior, working in the same project saying, I have this idea that it probably should be cut like this first, yeah? So you just have this mind as when you join the team, why they speak in such a way? Yeah? Because every one of us creates some kind of mental model of the system. Every time when we just join, we just creating this slowly, slowly. Even if you have the same time, your mental model is completely different. So there is no one good way to slice it. And it's going to be a lot of discussions how to slice it, even in the first phase, when you think that you understand everything very well. But what's actually happening? You have to understand your product, you have to understand yourself before you can cut it, yeah? So there are so many different contradicting, even sometimes contradicting forces trying to dissect this into different ways, yeah? And this is like a combination of all the myths. We think that the whole process of the transformation will be 1 week, right? 2 weeks, because we know the technologies, because we know what we do. We read a lot of books, we finish some trainings or anything like that. But I always thinking that it's all about people, right? We have different mental models, we have different positions, we understand the system in many different ways, that this process is never easy. Especially, we will speak about this later, the transformation of the architecture has a huge impact also on the structure of the company. How do you organize yourself in the work, not only about the technology? So microservices are not only about this. And this misunderstanding leads to some kind of thinking, okay, so we have a plan, let's finish this in 1 year. And you finish with the zombie 2010 in 2015, yeah? Because we don't know how to do this. Another myth, which probably was covered by 2 presentations which I participate today. Monolith is the only way to do things. This is a little bit problem from many different perspectives, because usually this kind of changes are driven by us, by developers. So when we thinking about this, we just want to have some specific technology. But sometimes we have some managers who want to say, we want to hire people who are on specific level, we want to more senior people, and they're saying plenty of times on the interviews, we don't want to join you because you have a monolith, right? In this case, they just want to drive you to some kind of microservices because people are saying that this is something which they want to do. But plenty of times we don't consider like hexagonal or monolith, which is organized, modular monolith, or you have different technologies like event-driven, serverless. We don't consider this because we want to have like our own individual drive to do something in a different way, in this way, which we want to do, right? Or the market just enforce you. But this may not be good. They may not be good for your product in general, which is probably the most important thing. So. But this is like a little bit negative way, but you also have some learnings which are a little bit more about yourself, a little bit like higher level. And I found some analogy. If you know, like you have a playground with children, with toys, and they just want to have fun, they want to play with this, yeah? So I think the microservices architecture is like a playground a little bit, because we have these children, we have many devices, right, to play toys and everything, and we have one goal. In the case of children, they have fun. In our case, we want to deliver some product, yeah? I want to use this analogy because I want to say that if you start playing with the microservices, quickly you just discover a few things. First one is architecture. You have many contradicting goals of the microservices, and they're trying to produce things on the limited amount of resources. So when you just extract things, you have to start thinking, where actually is it going to live? What kind of things I need to actually deliver something, yeah? Do I need this memory, this CPU? Do I need anything else? Maybe I need some GPU, right? So all these things, they know the children, us, developers and managers, they just want to just play on this playground with the specific toys, right? So the infrastructure immediately is visible in the microservices, right? This is what I was speaking at the beginning. When you start thinking about the monolith, the communication internally is quite easy. Usually it's managed by the language, by some kind of library dependencies. Everything is there. You can access everything which is public. The teams actually can easily reuse it. What's happening in this moment, when you just dissect things, you have to start to understand how the things are actually communicated between each other. Because what's happening, you have some latency, right? Imagine that your domain needs some knowledge from the other domains, and they're just asking each one. So you have like 1 and 10 asking 10 other services for something, yeah? So when you're asking about this, what's happening, you have some latency, which is accumulated, right? You also have to understand what's happening when one of the services is going to die and not having the information which you need. So you're also changing your way of thinking about how actually things are communicated to you and how you can solve the problems of the even performance, yeah? How this is going to affect you. How I'm going to just get this with some kind of reasonable time to serve this to the overall like customer or whoever is using the system, yeah? The other thing which emerged, yeah, we have a playground when just our parents are still watching us, right, as the children. So we need to also think about, start to learn how to understand what actually is happening inside the system. Usually it's like questioning the monolith was, what's happening with my order? Let's imagine that we have some order system. What's happening with my order from the beginning to the end? It was easy. It was one source code, which you can take a look and say, from this point to this point to this point to this point, I have this response. Easy peasy, right? In the distributed system, it's not longer true. So you have to find some way to trace things. Even more, sometimes, many times actually, many times you can see that you want to know what is going to be wrong, on which stage you actually make some mistake when the system doesn't work in the way you actually want to have this system. Yeah? In this case, you have to define a lot of tools, a lot of information, which is completely different than Monolith. And this is the huge learning for all us, especially developers, that when we just start doing this and we get this question from someone on the top or support team, we have to know these answers. Yeah. So we have to add some observability. And the other learning, I was really surprised many times as a consultant. I was working as a consultant for a few years. When we joined the team, people didn't know anything about the cloud because they didn't have a chance to work in the company for years in it. So this knowledge about infrastructure itself is one thing, but how actually each provider, what kind of services you can use, how you can utilize these things in each of the microservices, it's not very common. You can go to some presentation and everything, to go some meetup or go to the conference and just speak, but this is just like 1 hour thing. When you go to the practice, it needs a little bit more information, more deeper knowledge, because you can fall into some traps which actually are not intentional from the clouds or servers or anything you need to behind. So this is a completely new set of knowledge which you have to build on top of what you already have here. And the thing, we need to still maintain and supervise all these things. And this is when it's a little bit like infrastructure, but it's not infrastructure itself, because this is the part of the like DevOps thinking. Yeah? When you had the monolith, it was simple because you just had one piece of thing and you just put somewhere. Yeah? In this case, you need some kind of tooling which is going to manage things. You probably, all of you, or at least most of you, actually work in some kind of Kubernetes, Docker, or anything like that. But you have to remember that many times, as a developer, you don't know how much effort it needs to actually prepare this kind of things. In the perfect world, I would like to see the teams which are cross-functional and just have this knowledge containing in their own team responsible for each microservice. Yeah. But usually it's not true, right? You have some ops people inherited from the monolith, and they're just doing everything for you. They just provide you some platform, and you have to speak with them. Oh, okay, I need some memory. Okay, and I cannot do this in 2 weeks. And just this understanding just leaking very quickly outside the construct of your own microservices. And even if you have your own independence, still you have to think all about this provisioning part. When some memory is not like in the minute on your computer or on one computer when you run monolithic application. Okay, so it's time for cherry on the top of the cake. And human factor. That's usually when I read some books, they are very focused on the technological side. Probably you know who knows Conway's law. Okay, so I'll explain Conway's law, just saying that the way you communicate in your organization is exposed almost directly on the way you construct your software. What's happening? Imagine, it was already on the previous presentation which I was. Imagine that you want to change into microservices, and we don't change the company, the organization, because everything just changing from the top. Some people on the top, owners, stakeholders, they just have some vision what they want to do. This translates into hierarchies in the company. This translates to the culture, how do we work? And this is just defined ownership, responsibilities, who just taking responsibilities and everything. Domain boundaries are defined also by these people. Everything is coming from the top, yeah? And how do you manage your changes? All these things happening on the cultural level, on the hierarchy level, is happening in the with people, not in the software. Software is the just final thing which you're actually just doing this, yeah? So people do not think about this, that they have to change themselves when we change the architecture of your software. This is like reverted Conway's law. And at the end, forgetting about the, should say at the end, obviously should say at the top is our customer. And we plenty of times forgetting about this. That playing with this all the architectural things is just to make this person happy. So, just to quickly summarize, what you can expect when you're just doing some architecture? You can expect a lot of understanding yourself. It's not easy way to just jump from one thing to another without knowing what you have inside. And usually this knowledge can be spread somewhere else in some kind of documents which you don't know or are not up to date, anything like that. So you have to understand how your company is organized, how you're doing things, yeah? You have to grasp a lot of technological changes. It's going to expand your knowledge about not only about your language, but about software, infrastructure, organization things, cultural things. All this stuff is going to attack you at some point when you start this transformation. Yeah? And I think this is the thing. You have to also understand that the whole thing is evolution. Microservices now are just criticized by some groups of people. You can find some articles about this. So you have to know that maybe this microservices you will be forced to transform into something else in the next few years, months, weeks. We don't know. Yeah? And you can expect a lot of people involved. And these people are going to help you. They're going to oppose you. They are going to do a lot of things. But remember, this is all about people, especially our customers, especially ourselves, when we just have to keep some kind of sanity. So good luck. Thank you very much.
Robert, explosions, implosions, mythbusters. It was a pleasure to listen to this presentation. If you have any questions, ask them freely. If you feel more confident in Polish, that's no problem. So ask them in Polish or English. Feel free to ask anything. Just give me 2 seconds to move with a microphone, and I look forward to any questions.
That's better. Oh, there was one question.
What path of evolution would you recommend? When we got this ball of mud, we should first start with converting this ball of mud into monolithic but more structured, like then later just go to microservices?
Yeah, so the question was, I'll repeat the questions for video. The question was, what is this like recommended way to start with the things? Should we just change the monolith mouth into something better? Yes, I would suggest it. The reason is, I put a lot of emphasis on understanding yourself. plenty of times companies, they don't understand what they're doing internally on the technical level and also including the feature level. So when you try to do this internally without changing too much, you also improve the things technologically, and also you improve the things on the other side, organizationally. So if you combine these two things together, maybe you will get to the point when you understand that you don't have to do all the points one by one, which are written in the book, because you understand yourself better, and because you understand yourself better, you can do this in different way. And I like this like evolution rather than just revolution. And this is my personal opinion. I haven't seen this done so way many times. And this is the reason why I have all these patterns, seeing zombies and anything like that.
I will give us 15 seconds, maybe, or I can say.
What drivers do you recommend to consider when changing the organization? Because not changing only the code is the essential, but starting from the organization is not easier. But probably regarding the Conway's law would be better to start from the organization. How to find these aspects which are the most blocking changes for the evolution.
Yeah, so the question is how to drive the change, cultural change when you're doing this. So it's hard.
Good luck.
It's the hardest part of any changes. So I think someone else, when I was consultant, one person just gave me advice: find other people thinking in the same way. You cannot run a revolution as a leader, revolutionist, and everything else, right? You find people who actually think in the same way, try to share this knowledge with them, try to do some small steps towards the change, cultural or technological, show the benefits. I think this was the part of the advice. Show the benefits. What is the tangible thing for the managers? Usually it's money, yeah? So you have to translate all your changes into money. So, for example, I think the best way is to show, I'm going to deliver features instead of 3 weeks, I'm going to give you 1 week. A week, maybe it's not the best period, but if they will understand that the change which you're doing is actually just some kind of beneficial for them to drive some other things which present at the end as a money, that's the best way. But usually it's hard because you have these hierarchies, which I mentioned, you have some visions, and I don't hate this advice. At some point, if you are tired enough, just change the job.
Yeah.
This is unfortunate and fortunate in our industry. We have time for we have a time when we can just do it easily, right? Enjoy this because you're going to learn a lot of things. But on the other hand, I would like to change things, just have some kind of achievements and so on. But I think the best way is to find someone else, fight together.
And the metrics, right? To show to the business.
Metrics, data-driven.
Yeah.
Everything must be data-driven. Proof. Be like scientists.
Sure, thank you.
Quick question for you. One, in the ideal scenario, who do you believe should have the biggest say in making a decision on whether to break the monolith into microservices? Should it be the coders? Should it be business? Should it be management? Should it be architect?
All people.
Would you weight all of their opinions the same, or somebody should have a slightly
There should be
higher?
consensus. So there should be consensus about this, because if you drive the change without cultural change, you will fail. This will be enforced by the top level management because this is sexy, you will fail because developers don't see the reason for that. So as I mentioned, this is the part of the cultural change which is extremely hard. The extremely hard part is to understand that we have equal voice, but we have to make some decision on some kind of broken consensus, right? We have to find the pros and cons and understand ourselves enough to say that we are going to be beneficial from the specific movement. And sometimes one time you can put this trust in some kind of management because they're thinking, okay, so if we extract this domain, this is going to give us possibility to evolve a little bit faster. But sometimes developers see this is going to be a problem in the future when we try to extend the things and they drive. So there shouldn't be like one way to decide about this. This should be like driven by many different, as I said, even contradicting reasons. And this should be decision which is made on like should be evolved, should be made every time when it's there is a need for a change, not just like focus. This must be done in this way, and there is no other way. This is evolution. This is changing. This is you have how to react on what's happening. Because maybe when you start dissecting things, you just understand a little bit more, and there's no sense to continue to do this. So all things should be agile, whatever this means, right? Should be flexible enough just to move around. It's extremely hard because this is just requires a lot of organizational changes, and it's not always happening. Yeah. So my answer is all, not always all, depends on the situation.
Excuse me, we are out of time.
Okay.
So maybe if you have questions, I am sure Robert will answer them right next to the door. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much for your time.